Noro Yaro Lamatami. Waka Yen Bena Yota, Moma Bankara Ina, Nalan Waka, Gaunian Yakaranja, Buddha Nora Nana. And in English that says, welcome friends. You walk upon the land of the people, our people, the Yorta Yorta and all those clans that are involved with it. Take pleasure in all our land, respect all you see, and enjoy all these young people and what they've got to say. So thank you.
First people of Australia have known racism and appropriation. They've known suffering and pain, having lived with the impacts of personal experience, remembered histories, or what was done to them, their families and communities. Therefore, a real process of trust and relationship building is necessary. It will take time, energy and patience for a true reconciliation path to be forged. We also gathered today to remember all those Aboriginals and Torres Strait Islander people affected by the practice of forcibly removing children from their families and communities. Remember with sorrow, pain and suffering.
They took the children away from their mothers, their fathers and their families.
They told the children their mothers did not love them.
They wanted the children to lose their culture and spirituality.
They wanted the children to lose their identity and Indigenous people.
Many parents never saw their children again.
Many of the survivors suffered great hardship and pain.
Some of the survivors do not know how to love.
A great wrong was done.
And I speak of the war against the Aboriginal peoples in what is known as the Frontiers Wars. Just why is it today that this war that occurred on Australian soil is not being remembered with the same sacrosanct remembrance and deference as to the other wars that Australians were involved in? Today I simply ask the open question of where is the bunting, the earnest reflections, the flowered wreaths, the solemn and proud speeches of bravery and respectful acknowledgement of those that died in action, of those who were shot down and killed while they were trying to protect their family, their way of life, their country. One wonders, does the tardiness in that war's recognition have anything to do with its casualties? The victims, those that the war was fought against, are not being just men, but women, the elders, teenagers, little children, and yes, babies. Do other than me wonder of the bravery, the honour and respect found out there and carried from such an unequal battlefield? Lest we forget. There are the known and verified poisonings of clan groups, of arsenic and strychnine laced flour, the many sanctioned massacres and those many recorded illegal hunts by stockman and settler, the chasing down from horseback of men, women and children, including the forcing of them over cliffs or into water to then either drown or be shot. It seems to me that we as a nation should be acknowledging and remembering that long, bloody and internal war before reciting odes of offshore wars and assurance of those participants not being forgotten. Yes, lest we forget indeed. When I look at this Aboriginal flag, when I reflect upon what that little piece of cloth means, it was designed by Harold Thomas and first flown in July 1971. He described the symbolic meanings of the flag colours as black, representing the Aboriginal people of Australia, the gold circle representing the sun, the giver of life and the protector, red representing the red ochre, the red earth, the ochre used in our ceremonies, and speaking of the Aboriginal people's spiritual relation to this wonderful country. It's a bold and beautiful, proud flag, and I truly do love it. It's been flown from the Aboriginal Tent Embassy in Canberra since 1972. Kathy Freeman wore it along with the Australian flag after her multiple wins in the 1994 Commonwealth Games. And yes, as my friend here said, in 2000, a part of Reconciliation Week, it flew from the Sydney Harbour Bridge when 500,000 people turned out for the walk for reconciliation, showing the huge amount of support that was behind reconciliation in this country. For 5.5 hours, a continuous stream of people made their way across that landmark, making it the largest political demonstration in this country. That march then aimed to educate the public about the poor condition of Aboriginal health, of education and of welfare, of the high imprisonment rates and the number of deaths in custody suffered by Indigenous Australians. To me, though, this flag means much more. Can I put it to you that the colour of the black represents the eagle iniquities forced upon our people, the rapes, the forfeiture of one's homeland, the loss of traditional authority, the loss of planned responsibility, our traditional position and obligations, the officially sanctioned mass murders, the conspiracies of silence, the deaths in custody, the poor housing, the enforced poverty, and the over-representation in our prisons today. Can I speak to you of that red, of that beautiful flag, conceivably representing the colour of the blood of our people, of our brave people? Blood much shed by our forebears flowing into the soil from such brave ancestors as they challenged the taking of their country. Wooden weapons against gunpowder and steel, cannon and rifle. That bright red of the flag represents the copious blood shed by our people murdered or taken as slaves, as prisoners of whole family and clan groups running so desperately from their lives, from rifle, bullet, horseman and club. And you students from the school, please don't mistake my passion for anger. I'm not an angry man. Even though our people have much to be angry at, I personally choose not to be angry. It's better for one's health. As a person with considerable connection to country and a Christian belief system, I watch with great intent and awe as I see the mighty wedge-tailed eagle soaring above me, and each time it happens I acknowledge mighty Bunjil as being creator deity, he representing our creator. It is the gold of my flag that represents the sun as the giver of life, and for me, I look at my flag and I see a risen sun, my eternal future, my hope in the wondrous dream time beyond this life. After the darkest and most desperate of times, there always dawns a new day, and there is a risen sun. I'm lucky to still have a faith and to believe in a gracious Creator and be able to look forward to sharing dream time in His presence. That little three-piece flag there says that I am, that we are, that our people are still here. It proud and loudly says we have survived. It proclaims the truth that this generation and our last has survived, that our children and their future children will not only continue to survive, but they will thrive. What is changing? My story in 1962, due to alcohol-fueled family violence, my mother fled what was then the family home. Her then husband, a returned soldier, retained the War Commission home, and she was labelled the deserting wife. There was no such thing as a single parent's pension. There was no such thing. Because of the lack of safe, affordable housing, because of enforced poverty, me and my two brothers were charged after my mother was seeking help from services. No fixed place in the boat and no visible means of support. We were then made wards of the state and incarcerated in a place called Tirana. It's still registered as a prison today. We then went from there to a place called a Lambie Reception Centre, but it's not like a reception you get at a wedding. We were then shipped, taken to a place called Ballarat, where we spent years in children's homes up there. And we now know today, in the current Royal Commission, of the iniquities that were done there. We hear something of the iniquities. Not all people are going to talk. The cost is too much. But what we're not hearing is of the torture. We're only hearing of the sexual abuse. There hasn't been an inquiry into torture that occurred. I know of one lady who spoke to me and told me how she was held down by some nuns and her front teeth pulled out without any painkiller as a punishment for stealing a packet of cigarettes. Her and her girlfriend both had their teeth removed. They didn't steal the cigarettes. My wife and I, my family, are foster carers. we've had many, many children come and stay. Some for a week, some for a month, some for a year. It's been one for over a decade. And that's a wondrous thing, because I know, my experience tells me that if we have one child that is safe, that they are warm, that they are well fed, that they are cared, even only for just one night, that's a huge thing in that child's life. A week is better, a fortnight is better, a month is better. But what is changing? Last night, in Victoria's out-of-home care system, it is estimated there were 6,800 children, young people, in state care. 1 in 15 of those is Aboriginal. It's a gross overrepresentation of what we make up 1.7% of the population. And yet in Victoria, 1 in 15 children is Aboriginal and in state care. The flats, the place of refuge, where the Yorta Yorta people fled to in 1939, from Cummeragunja Mission. A place of refuge remains still today a place of refuge. A place where, because of the lack of safe, affordable housing, people are forced to reside and live there. A place of not yet completely broken hope. A place of a dream of somewhere safe and of warmth. Australia's come a long way. I think of the 1967 referendum, the freedom rides in New South Wales in the early 1950s, the Royal Commission into deaths in custody. And it was a year ago, in August this year, that the then Premier Steve Bracks gave an apology to people who were forcibly taken and put into children's homes. One can't help but be cynical, though, because the Victorian government changed the state laws prior to the apologies, so they didn't have to admit liability. We apologise, but how sorry are we? Today I encourage young people, get the best education you can. It is absolutely priceless. Aboriginal children, your non-Aboriginal children, get the best education you can. That was something that was robbed from me. You have an opportunity. Make the best of it wherever you can. I also want to speak to the healing that is on offer for our people. Many of us remain lost and not connected to country. But if you listen with your heart and your spirit to country, country can offer healing. And as a Christian man, I share, I'm not sure where country starts and stops and where God, our Creator, begins and finishes. I'm not at all sure. But country can talk to you. And with that can be the opportunity for great healing. And I think, in the words of Forrest Gump, that's about all I've got to say on that.
It encourages each and every one of us to make reconciliation a part of our own story. Our future reinforces the reconciliation must live in the hearts, minds and actions of all Australians as we move forward. In the knowledge that we believe in fairness for everyone, that our diversity makes us richer and that together we are stronger. National Reconciliation Week is a time for all Australians to learn about our shared histories, cultures and achievements, and to explore how each of us can join the national reconciliation effort and work for healing our land. We invite you all to take part.
We ask those that are able to stand for a minute's silence, to pause to remember those who were taken from their families, and acknowledge the pain and suffering this practice caused to individuals, their families and communities.